tell the world we are Liverpool, champions of England.
We've conquered all of Europe. We're never gonna stop. From Palestine to Turkey, we've won the fucking lot. But Paisley and the Shankly, the fields of Anfield gold. We are all supporters, and we come from Liverpool.
G'day, everybody, and welcome to the Red Sea podcast. Red Sea Down Under, the match debate. Actually, kind of forgot what was going on for a second there because I was looking at this, and I just felt like I just wanted to scream whatever Jurgen Klopp was screaming. Do not lose. We didn't lose. We proved. It wasn't a great game, wasn't a fantastic weekend for the Reds, although we're trying to keep ahead of the people we want to. We fall behind a little bit from Chelsea. Could have been worse, but kind of feels like 2 drops point. It shouldn't kind of feel like that, Pete. It is 2 points dropped. How was your weekend considering the Reds did their best to try and destroy everybody's weekend?
Oh, no, they did. They did destroy it because I had 2 hours sleep that night because of them. And then to work a full day off the back of that shit. So, fuck you, Liverpool, at the moment because I'm still recovering for it. Also, I just read then, by the way, this is breaking news about 10 minutes ago. Nuno Santo sacked from Tottenham.
Breaking news. I saw it a little bit earlier than that, but yes, definitely.
Yeah, but the Red Sea podcast are breaking news.
We are breaking this news to you right now, to all the 0 viewers right now that are watching live. Jimmy, we've also got Jimmy and Nick here with us. Jimmy, we're going to have a discussion probably later on in this podcast, in this show about what it feels like and what this means for the season going forward. But in the moment, as Jurgen Klopp likes to say, how does it feel? What does it feel like these 2 points dropped?
Frustration. Disappointment, especially when you come off the back of a fanatic 5-0 victory at Old Trafford and you drop 2 points like that at home against Brighton. And no disrespect to Brighton, I'm sure we'll go into the conversation soon, but it's just painful. It's the only way I can describe it. It just hurts. It shouldn't be like that, but here we are. It's the 4th game that we've drawn in the league this season from memory. It doesn't feel right.
Doesn't feel right. Nick, what's going through your mind here? It's a 2-2 draw at home. We're second. We're points ahead of Manchester City, who lost 2-0 to Crystal Palace, who we made easy work of. So what's the feeling at the moment? We're allowed to be a little bit dejected at the game. But do the feelings extend further than that? Are there issues, or is it just a drawn game?
I think it's just a drawn game where we weren't at it. I mean, we've had a good week taking on Atletico Madrid with their shithousery. Then we wallop Manchester United 5-0. We have a EFL Cup game against Preston North End, where even in that game, I thought we were lucky to escape with all 3 points there because, again, Preston North End were actually quite decent, had a few chances themselves. And then we go at home against Brighton, who have been a decent side this season. They're, like we say, every season there's one team from the bottom half that sort of like creeps their way up or has a good season. They don't make Europe, or they really do, but they just do enough to frustrate all the other teams. And Brighton are doing that at the moment with many others of them. They've got quite a few draws in there, and one of them is ours. But in saying that, I mean, we didn't play our best. We could have conceded in the first 2 minutes. We scored straight after that. And then again, they had chances. We had a few chances. We had some unfortunate decisions go against us. They had decisions go against them. At the end of the day, you look at it and you say, okay, it's a drawn game. Like, could we have done better? Yes. But at the same time, it could have been much worse and we could have actually lost that game. So, yeah, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, if you ask me.
So, Pete, it kind of, there's an interesting moment. It happens it's actually right before, if you guys remember, and this is for everybody to remember, but I'm going to direct it at you, Pete. We are pressing very high, and we almost get the ball off the goalkeeper. And I remember thinking at that moment, by the way, and I was very quiet in our little match thread. I just wanted to watch the game. I was just like, I don't want to miss the game by chatting and typing and whatever. So I sat back, but I remember at that moment, it's just before Sadio Mane nicks the ball off the goalkeeper. He actually almost gets it just before that. And I remember thinking, Liverpool are pressing really high, really quick here, and we're 2-0 up. I wonder if we're going too hard, too early, too fast. So let's just talk about that start. It was very, very quick. Were we going really, really quick and we couldn't keep up that tempo, Pete? Or is it more than that? We shot ourselves in the foot because we scored 2 really cool goals early on. We lose Naby Keita. We get a disallowed goal, 3-0 could have been. It's kind of a frenetic start.
Yeah, it could have been 3-0, but it could have been also 1-1. Like, it's one of them ones, because I think before Henderson scored, they almost had a really good chance to go up, didn't they? Nice and early.
Mm-hmm. So much.
But by the way, can I just stop that there? With the whole, it could have been 1-1. We wouldn't have scored if they had scored the 1. So it's either it could have been 1-0 or, you know that thing? Yeah. Sorry, I like to.
No, but it's easy to say it could have been 3-0, but then again, it could have been 1-0 down. So, yes, correct. Yeah, okay. We started nicely, okay, but then what I saw was exactly what Klopp said after the game. Was I saw a team that thought they had won already, kind of thing. Like, it was the body language completely changed. We stopped pressing, not because we were tired, because that's what we've been doing for 5 years in a row. So you can't get tired. Like, they've all literally trained to do that. I took the foot off the pedal and got absolutely. Not just that, we actually got tactically outdone at home as well, which is what frustrates me. You saw Potter make some changes early at halftime. You saw him change the way he kind of wanted to press. Then he saw a couple of changes in the shape. And we had no answer whatsoever in the second half and got absolutely done at home. Outplayed as well, by the way.
Well, let's start with our goals. I love the we probably want to get onto the cathartic process of ruining the 2 points dropped, I know, but let's focus on us scoring at the beginning of the game. It's just, I'll throw this one up to anybody who puts their hand up. There's a lot of memes going around with what's the Chukaraka, I don't know what his name is, La Cucaracha. I'm just going to call him La Cucaracha. He's a dance. The left back, and it shows Mo Salah in his pocket, and it's just like, this is, is there any change? For because he's got so much Salah in his pocket. And it gets to the point where Mo Salah needs to take on 3 players and get an assist for the whole world to think that he's being kept quiet. I mean, probably by his standards he was, but first goal comes from that, and it's a Jordan Henderson finish. I don't know what's going on. I've heard all sorts saying that it was an unstoppable strike. It looked strange. I'll throw this one to you, Jimmy. It just looked really strange. I don't know. Was it unstoppable? It just felt like it went straight.
Yeah, I think Unstoppable was probably getting a little bit dramatic there. It was a well hit shot. You could almost probably argue it in some way. It could have been a cross that didn't go very well. It was just a well taken, placed finish. But going back to what you said, you're absolutely right. I think the plaudit has to go to Mohamed Salah because everyone's eyes are on him right now. And Graham Potter said it before the game. He's not world class. He's actually out of this world class. And when you see those players trying to slow him down and mark him, it's not 1, it's not 2, it's 3. But then that just creates opportunity elsewhere. And Jordan Henderson's obviously in the right place at the right time and finishes well. It's a good finish. I actually thought the keeper probably could have done more. I think the Brighton goalkeeper was very happy to walk away with a point, to be honest, because he had an absolute shocker a lot of the time. And it's really strange that because the way that Brighton play, they soak, especially on the weekend there, they soak up a lot of pressure and play that ball at the back and let Liverpool come forward before they really try and spring it forward. But look, I think it was the perfect, in hindsight, it was the perfect time to score, especially after they had that early opportunity. I think we got away with that as well. But that should have been the start of the process to then go, right, we've got 1, then we move on to the next goal. And then from there, we should have really converted more chances. I think Bobby Firmino had a one-on-one opportunity that he absolutely squandered and flew well over the bar as well. So whilst I feel Brighton did very well in the second half to earn the points, I think we really have to ask ourselves a lot of questions about our ability to have a high conversion of shots as well. I think that's starting to become quite a bit of a concern this season at the moment. I know we've had almost, was it three away goals in almost every game this season or whatever it is, but there's such a high number of shots, a high number of attacking opportunities that seem to just get so easily wasted. There's always chances that get saved or blocked, whatever it is, but there just seems to be a number of chances that we just seem to squander at, and I just wonder how we managed to do that. So there's a lot of questions coming out of this game and moving on to the next one, especially with a big game coming up against Atletico Madrid.
And it's what you're talking about. It's breaking those walls down, but not taking advantage. As I come to Jericho, using that pun there for breaking the walls down. Pete knows what I'm talking about. It's that submission move. But g'day, Jericho. Good evening. Very nice to see you. I want to throw this one actually at you, Pete, very quickly before I do go to you, Nick, on the second goal. But does it frustrate you, Pete, that we score from an opportunity like that with Jordan Henderson? And what happens is Virgil van Dijk, it's actually something we've been talking about on the shows before, on the training ground before this one, the Virgil van Dijk switch to Salah, and Salah gets to run in. So what happens with that is that Salah takes it really, really deep and then comes back. So it's kind of like he moves the line back to a point where it's like, now I've created space for a shot, and then he sets up the shot. Does it annoy you, Pete, that we didn't see more opportunities like Henderson's one, considering we have the talent to move them back and move them side to side the way that we kind of did in that one attack? It's the only shot, really, isn't it, Jordan Henderson?
Yeah, it's a good question, because I think the issue is not so much why didn't we do that more. I think the issue is we do that too much sometimes because the midfield doesn't do enough of creating opportunities. I mean, the midfield has got a lot of credit lately because they have been scoring goals. I think so, 100% they have been. But I'm trying to remember how many times during a game do you actually see a midfielder get on the ball and thread them needles for, like we saw Fabinho do it a couple of times, that chip to Salah he scores from. We saw Henderson's pass to Salah against United, which was obviously a top pass, but those two are the ones that stick out the most. We don't see that enough, which is why Van Dijk is the one who has to kind of be the one who creates something from a long kind of pass. But then the other one Henderson's goal, great goal. I mean, I think I agree with you guys. I think that, it's overhyped in terms of screamer, stunner, unsavable, whatever it is. It's a good goal, good finish, good placement. But that's our defensive midfielder on the edge of the box there. And that's the problem during the whole entire game. During our match, I said I could have taken 15 pictures in the first half of how badly positioned we were in attack, in so much whilst we were getting attacked. And there's a prime example. Yeah, he scores, excellent goal. But that's our defensive midfielder on the edge of the box taking a shot. And behind him was nobody, absolutely nobody. And we've seen that against us now. How many games that space in midfield is completely exploited.
Well, Nick, it's another injury to Naby Keita, but it does allow Oxlade-Chamberlain to come on. And I think if the whole team is kind of moving at that pace, Chamberlain can kind of come in and do his thing. From there onwards, though, he's not that great, but we do have to give him credit for that ball in. That's what he does have in his locker. Against Preston, we did see him go past a couple of players and have a couple of shots. But it seems that adventurousness or that adventure seemed to pretty much disappear in this game. The only moment of magic we saw from him was immediately after he came on. He creates that chance and then he kind of goes missing. But it's an interesting goal. And that's kind of what a right-footed winger type can provide for you on that side. That's what we see from Henderson. Henderson adopted that from Gerrard. Gerrard used to drift right, and he used to put in those balls from that kind of area. I've talked about many times on other shows, iterations of this show, whether it was The Couch or it's the Red Sea podcast. I feel like Henderson learned a lot from Steven Gerrard, how to be the quarterback and how to drift out wide right. But Chamberlain is another one of these players that has that right winger, right midfield. He kind of has that education. It's a good cross and a good goal.
Oh, it was a great cross. I mean, when you see him pick up the ball from deep, and that's the thing with Chamberlain, we know he likes to drive. We know he's a midfielder who likes to run in from deep. And I'm not saying he should be playing as a as a deep lying midfielder, but all the same, still we've seen that's where he scored his goals. That's where he's got himself in positions where he's coming from a not a deep position, shall we say, but just hanging back and just waiting for something, making a late run into the box, and scoring goals against City, twice in a row, and also scoring goals with the outside of his foot in the Champions League against Porto, and things like that. But we know he can put a ball in, he can put a cross in, and that was just a lovely ball over the top. He saw Mane in space, perfectly split two defenders, and the defense for that goal from Brighton's point of view, that was sort of amateurish. You've got Sadio Mane right behind you. It was a perfect ball, clearly onside, no issues there, and he's tucked it away past the goalkeeper, and then it's 2-0, and you're thinking, okay, there'll be another one coming, and then maybe a fourth even in the first half, like against United. But Brighton, they weren't as adventurous as maybe United were, but they waited for moments to get us. And with Naby coming off, Chamberlain coming on, you're playing with Curtis Jones as well. You've got a midfield where you've got basically attacking midfielders and only one defensive mid, and no one really to break up the play. Even Henderson, I wouldn't consider him a defensive midfielder. I mean, he's a good central midfielder, but he's no defensive mid. So you're effectively playing with three attacking mids, and how are you supposed to defend the midfield when you don't have a defensive-minded midfielder in that three? Like that's how I saw it, because we got, like Pete said, we got torn apart a few times. Chances on goal, it became open up, through various moments in that game, and obviously Chamberlain coming on for Keita, and again it's another injury for Keita, and at this point he's becoming a real-life meme now. And where do we go from here? Because it's like we've said before, it's the curse of not replacing a player that you need. We didn't replace Van Dijk last season. Our defense got obliterated. We didn't replace Wijnaldum. Our defense is getting hammered now. And where do we go from here?
George has said this 100 times, by the way. Nick, you're spot on. George has mentioned this 3 million times now, I think.
And there it is. I've prepared a banner for it.
Yep. Yep.
By the way, and as I say it, I don't really like. Again, we're going to get into a conversation later on in this show about the manner in which supporters can choose to react and be in the moment after a game, or even given a couple of days after the game. We'll go on about what that process is like, and you can have that same emotional reaction to a transfer. This has got no emotion attached to it. What I've written down here and what I keep bringing up, it's not a reactionary thing. I don't think I know more than Klopp or anything like that. I just literally, as calm as and I don't think it's FSG out or whatever. I'm just saying that I understand the approach that Liverpool are taking here. And I'll go back to you, Nick, but because Pete obviously agrees with me on this one. But it's just, I know their approach and they're taking a gamble. They did it last season with Lovren. And again, with Van Dijk in January, I mean, we bring in Davies, and he's able to push up the performances of Phillips and Williams. Okay, I get that. That's our way of replacing three world-class centre-backs. But we don't replace Lovren at the start. We get screwed by it. Beginning of last season, I said to Pete, again on our couch iterations, if we don't replace Lovren, I feel like we're going to get found out. And we did. This season, same thing. I said, we're not replacing Wijnaldum. Did we not learn our fucking lesson last year? Again, if we don't do it, I'm going to support the team and support the decisions, because Liverpool have come such a far way, and there have been a lot of risks taken, and most of the time they've come off. I mean, we get third last year. The risk kind of worked. They got their Champions League football. So we have to step back and go, oh, congratulations. But again, we have a massive player in Gini Wijnaldum that was not replaced. He was games. It's not necessarily massive match-winning performances. Games, pure resources that we lost. We didn't replace him. Nick, it's the same story. And again, I don't say it from emotion. It's just the way it is.
This is the thing. A lot of people conflate emotion and rational thinking. You can look at something and react emotionally, be upset, be angry at the team, at the performance. We get that. But then you got to look at the reasons why the performance. You have to look at the reasons why things transpired on the pitch the way they did. If we had Fabinho in that starting 11, there's no guarantee we would have won the game anyways, but we would have been more content thinking, okay, we've got Fabinho in there. We know he can stop passing lanes. He can break up an attack and do all the things that he does. We get that. It makes us at ease. But again, you have a defensive midfielder there. Wijnaldum played defensive mid for us yet he was scoring goals for the Netherlands. That's a player who's versatile, and if you needed him to, he could run forward. He scored goals running into the box as well, headers against City, loops over the top against Bournemouth or whoever the hell it was, and the guy did get you goals. But it's not to say we want our midfielders to score us goals, but we need our midfield to do what it is that they need to do. And at the moment, the midfield is not doing what it needs to do. A lot of people will say, like your United midfield of Pogba, McTominay, and Fred, for example, they're no good, whatever. I would still back our midfield over theirs, but you need to have the right players in the positions in order to get that shit done, and we don't at the moment. Keita's out. If Fabinho doesn't come back, if Thiago's not back, that's 3 players already who you'd say would be starting matches in some capacity. You have no Elliott. Jones is there. Henderson. Milner's injured as well with his old age. Chamberlain's, lukewarm and cold. Where do you go from there?
I mean, this is a full list of Liverpool's midfielders going into the season, thinking that this was enough, by the way. Thiago, Keita, Fabinho, Henderson, Chamberlain, Curtis Jones, James Milner, and Harvey Elliott. I mean, it depends if you think Minamino's a midfielder. But Pete, were you going to say something on top of?
No, I was just counting. I was counting. Sorry, yeah.
You're counting them. But that's the thing. That was some of the arguments, and this is the thing. Same thing with centre back. If you think that Joe Gomez is a suitable stopgap for an injury crisis, then you're mistaken. He's not, and neither is Joel Matip. So having Matip and Gomez and Van Dijk, and then you can say we have 3 fit centre backs. You don't. You've got Van Dijk, and then you've got the other 2 who are sick notes. I'm sorry, they are. When you look at that list, let's just go through it again. Thiago, injury prone. Keita, injury prone. Chamberlain, injury prone. And then Milner gets a hamstring every so often, but I've already just named you a potential starting lineup. Fabinho last season, injury prone a little bit.
Yeah.
Come to think of it.
Yeah.
I mean, all of those, do they replace, let's just say 3 of them, do 3 of them replace Gini Wijnaldum, who was not injury prone? James,
I don't
I can
think
see
the 3
you
of
saying
them,
no. Sorry, go.
The 3 of them don't get 60 games. No way.
No chance.
And Jimmy's saying no, pretty much.
That's what Gini Wijnaldum got you. Gini Wijnaldum got you minutes on the pitch. It's as simple as that. You could play him every single game of the Premier League season. You could do him cup runs. You could do him Champions League. He could still go off to internationals, and he would probably still be ready to play 90 minutes, no problem at all. I can't off the top of my head remember a time when Gini Wijnaldum was out for an extended period because of injury. But the injury thing to one side, the thing that Gini Wijnaldum gave you was that link between the sort of the defensive mode of midfield and the attacking mode of midfield. Being the midfield is such a difficult position to play in. You have to be so versatile. You have to be able to do so many things. Read the game, not just with your feet, but in terms of your mental capacity to read a game and know what to do next. You have to be so switched on. And he was brilliant at being able to know when to make the right move, where to be, where to play the ball. He was absolutely fantastic at that. And the problem that we've got is we've got players who are either really good at one thing or really good at the other thing, and that's fine. That's no problem. But we are missing that one player that can just bridge that gap. I feel that Curtis Jones could potentially become that player. But I still feel like
he was shite, by the way. I'm sorry.
He was.
I thought he was horrible against Brighton. I don't usually say shit like that.
No, you're not wrong. But I think what's happened there is I think as a team we've just completely got out of sorts. The game plan's gone out the window. Everyone's got frazzled, and unfortunately, because of the position that he's playing, it stands out even more that he's just getting completely lost, pulled left, right, and centre. But he has, on occasion this season, shown us that he can be versatile across that midfield three, and I think he's still just got a little bit more to learn, and he could potentially start to be that person that does bridge that gap. But at the moment, we're not seeing it, and we're seeing a lot of issues coming from our midfield at the moment. And it goes back to what you're saying. At the start of the season, we take a risk. We say, right, well, we've still got 8 midfielders. That's what we're going to go with. And I feel that Jurgen Klopp's trying to play the midfield in a bit of a different way. We've seen a lot of really high press, and we've seen a lot of gaps between defence and midfield. Mm-hmm. Is that something that he's trying to do? I hope not. But at the same time, there's always tweaks to what he does every single year. Is that it? Maybe. But I think we're now starting to say, we said a few weeks ago, we don't want to have a midfield injury crisis. And every week we seem to be on the cusp of it, because someone else gets injured, but then someone just comes back, and then the next person gets injured, but someone's just come back. So
they should
be interesting to see.
They should know the curse, though. You know what I mean? Like, it's even if we had 20 midfielders, if we lose a player and don't replace them, we fucking won the league and didn't replace anybody. Like, we won the Champions League and didn't replace anyone. Why are we going out buying a £9 million player in Takumi Minamino? And that's kind of like, what are we're gonna beat the system? It would have been great if Liverpool just made a statement with one of their signings, right? It's just like, just for the purposes of there is a curse on us. If we have an injury, if there is a question about whether we should be replacing someone because we don't end up replacing them in the future, then just put your house on it. We will get punished, Pete. We will.
It's interesting how you say that. And I'm just going to rewind it back a few seconds there. And the whole Curtis Jones thing, and I agree he wasn't obviously good. But the thing is, he's 20 years old. Yeah, but look, he's 20 years old. He's still learning his trade. But I also feel like there's handcuffs on him at the moment too, because it's like, well, Henderson's a holding midfielder, but he's not really a holding midfielder, and he's been exposed more than any of the midfielders. But we're not allowed to say that. We'll get to that later. Then there's obviously Ox was as I said, meant to be the link one that Naby Keita was doing, the Naby Keita role, which Naby actually has been pretty good at that, by the way. Before the injury, he was
it's a good
looking
point
okay.
from Jimmy, by the way. That whole idea of the linkage between the defense and the attack. Yeah,
and then so they're
Keita's
like,
been that player.
Yeah, but Curtis is normally, as you said a million times, George, he's got that Coutinho-esque vibe where he can get forward and create shots, thread needles, and all that kind of stuff. But then again, it feels like over the past couple of times he's played, there's been handcuffs on him. You saw it against Preston North End. You saw it against Brighton. It's almost like, I get you're really good at that stuff, but learn this side of the game now. So maybe he is trying to bridge the gap with Curtis because he knows there's longevity with him. He knows he's a scouser and he knows he's not going to go anywhere. But it's something also, why? If you know he's so good at the one thing that we need help with, why do that though? Look, that's my thing. It's let him be free, let him express himself, and maybe...
We talked about it, by the way, with Minamino, which is the whole idea of, and it didn't work out, by the way, because Minamino kind of got handcuffed so much that he stayed in jail, essentially. But it's this idea of, like, they call it in economics, micro reform, where you think long term. So you take the hit, you take a lot of negatives early on, Pete. So you kind of go to Curtis, okay, you're going to struggle for 10 games. But in the long run, we're going to end up with a Steven Gerrard-esque player, this box-to-box player who's not only... And by the way, Gerrard never had the Coutinho style, element to his game. He did it despite that, but he didn't have that naturally. Curtis Jones does have that tricky feet, can do a few step-overs and a Ronaldo chop and whatnot. He's got the skills of a winger. If you add the skills of a winger to the graft and the box-to-boxness of Gini Wijnaldum, you do have one of the best midfielders potentially. But it's coming at a cost right now, like you said.
Yeah, because it pisses me off a little bit because how he was copying like it was his fault over the weekend. Yet, again, I'll go back to the comment I mentioned earlier. I could have taken 15 different photos during the first half alone of it wasn't just him out of position. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? And there's because it's easy to blame a 20-year-old, it's like pointing the finger that way. And again, he wasn't good. There was no way he was at the level he should have been on the weekend. 100% I agree with that. It doesn't mean you point the finger at the easy target where for some reason, it's like, blasphemy if you can say, look, Henderson actually keeps getting caught out there. He's actually too far forward. Why is he in the edge of the box in the 80th minute?
Get ready to be bombarded, Pete.
Oh, fuck them. But it's something that it's just one of them ones. It's if you don't point the finger at one, find a football solution, as I tried to mention in our chat earlier. Find a football problem that you think is a legitimate one and discuss the football problem. Don't point a finger at someone and say, fuck him, it's his fault.
Well, I've got an interesting here just to go into. I mean, I did want to discuss the Brighton goals, if you guys have been bothered to watch them back and analyze what went wrong with both of them. I mean, one of them is a case of Alisson wasn't wearing his baseball cap. But this is what Rahul says, by the way. G'day, Rahul. Thanks for joining us. People overreacting to a draw. Sure, we were poor in the second half, but we have been through a tough set of fixtures. Klopp has one problem. He keeps faith in players who are too injury prone. I mean, that second half is kind of something that we've been discussing, this idea of, our injury prone players. And maybe that is a question to go back to, why didn't we fix that in the transfer window? But it's just this idea of, overreacting to a draw. And I do want to come to this when we chat about this, the four of us, and then extend this to everybody watching here. The idea of, and I'm going to put this banner up because I think this is disrespectful to both sides. If you're a positive person, you're called a top red. If you're critical, you're called a moaner. And these two constantly are fighting each other. So basically, the idea is if Liverpool draw this game, I'm going to start with you, Nick. Liverpool draw this game, the reaction can be, this was disappointing and this is what went wrong. But then there's an extra mode to go. There have been some tweets circulating around, and when somebody does try to lift the mood, they're kind of like called a top red. And also on the other side, if someone says if something went wrong, they're called an absolute moaner and they're not a real supporter. I mean, there's got to be a way to find the middle ground.
I mean, excuse me, it's how did I say it before? I said it's like emotion versus rationale. Like, you can be emotional after a decision or a result. I can understand it. You can be upset that Mane's goal, his second goal, was a handball, even though it's ricocheted off his arm, and where the hell's he supposed to go with his arm? You know what I mean? If that happens to a defender in the box, probably says play on, accidental or whatever nonsense, but it goes against us. You can be upset at that. But then you have to say to yourself, okay, letter of the law says if it deflects and goes off his hand in any which position, it's a handball, ergo it's a handball. Fair enough. You can still be upset, but you have to realize that there's a reason why. You can't just sit there and say, oh, we've had a tough run of fixtures and, Klopp knows what he's doing and we'll be right up there and everything's going to be good and well, when you know yourself that ideally you'd want it to be, but you know that the midfielders that you have are not going to cut it against an Atletico Madrid. They're not going to cut it when you go away to, say the Emirates or whatever, for example, on their resurgence. You still need players to play, and you can lift the mood and be confident and be cheering, all that sort of things there. Mm-hmm. But when someone says to you, hang on a second, we actually have an issue with the midfield. Oh, you don't like our players. You should support our players all the time. It's like, in what fucking world did you translate me saying our midfield isn't up to scratch to I don't support the midfield? There's a break in, there's a failure to communicate, as Cool Hand Luke would say. That's what it is there. I can be objective about something, and then you can be emotional about something. You have to put the emotion aside and look at what's in front of you.
Pete?
So we have drawn 40% of our league games at the moment, right? That's just, again, not my opinion. That's what's happened. 3 of them have been at home.
These are, sorry, to quote Benitez, these are facts.
So 3 of them have been at home, and 2 of them will be in front.
His notepad out. They're fucked.
No, but hold on. So what does this sound like to me, right? So 40% of the draws, 3 of them have been at home. 2 of those 3 draws we've been in front of, and we've conceded the lead at home on both occasions. Then there's been 7 different occasions this season so far where we've given up leads. Mm-hmm. So if I turn around and say that's not good enough, what the answer that's going to come back is, yeah, but we're undefeated still. Okay, we're undefeated still, but we've also given up the lead 7 times. And to win the league, you don't. So
what is it not good enough compared to, though? Who is it not good enough compared to? Because how many points are we ahead of City? 2. They're the champions. So who is it not good enough compared to?
Okay, put
to Liverpool,
game, for example. But look at our standard.
How much better do we need
twice
to be?
Against Brentford.
Yeah,
a lot better to be better than Brentford, because Brentford since that game against us have been doing nothing. So we went up against them twice, and we failed to concede to capitalise twice. Brighton at home 2-0 up. We go down 2-2, and we should have lost at some point too, by the way, during that game. So that's not good enough. That's just not good enough. The City game, you forget about it. Chelsea, forget about it. Whatever. But it's not good enough. Sorry, these teams will be fighting from 10th and below eventually, and we can't beat them going up against them twice.
So what's the bottom line? What's the bottom line about it not being good enough? Do you think, in that sense, that there is an issue with Liverpool and this is a crisis, or what?
Both occasions, people getting behind the midfield and getting unmarked, on both those games, and almost all 7 games.
Do you think Liverpool are in a crisis, or do you think they're in good shape?
What's a crisis?
I don't know. Is it a bad thing? Is it right now? Are things on fire, or are Liverpool in good shape? If you had to choose one of the two, or are they average?
You can't be like that. You can't say everything's fine. You got to, as it stands, those 2 games was not good enough. And when you look at those 2 games being up twice, we should be up in front by 5 points.
Okay, so put those games aside. Right now, Liverpool in the league and where they are in the Champions League, are you happy with everything where it is at the moment?
Who wouldn't be happy? But those 2 occasions aren't good enough.
Okay,
that's as simple as that. There's opinion on the game.
Jimmy?
What?
Sorry, I'm ready to dive in half the time. I've got my water wings on. I think from a Liverpool fan perspective as well, though, you look back at some of the years that we've had where we have dropped points against these teams that we expect ourselves to beat. And it was those dropped points that have cost us top place, have cost us where we actually expect ourselves to be. That's where we turn around and we say, right, well, that's disappointing. And what we could have done was A, B, C, and D. Still support the boys, still love the club, still, I'm still going to get up at 3 a.m. and watch the game, and I'm going to scream my lungs out despite the fact my daughter's fast asleep in the room next door. But it's just, we obviously have a high expectation because we obviously expect the best. And there's nothing wrong with that. We want the best for the club. We want to be able to watch football and celebrate the best moments. But with that, you also accept the disappointment that comes with it. And as football fans, it's natural to talk about it, convey your opinion, and then you look forward to the next Saturday. That's just how football works. But at the same time, we've obviously had so many years where we've went, we're so close. And, it's the old joke. They always just say, Liverpool fans always say, there's always next year and stuff like that. Well, that's because we used to be so fucking close and we used to drop points against these fucking shit-ass teams. That's why it's disappointing. That's why when we turn around and say things like, we've drawn 40% of our league games this season, that's just fact. But that's also not really what we were expecting. So it's okay to debate it. It's okay to discuss it. It's okay to say, maybe if we had signed someone in the summer, that would have been a better idea for the midfield because then we wouldn't have an injury crisis or we wouldn't have a midfield crisis. But that's football, and that's okay to discuss it. You can't go around with rose-tinted lenses on going, it's fine because we're going to win the next 10 games and we're going to beat West Ham, we're going to beat Arsenal after the international break and everything will be fine, don't worry about it. And then in January, Harvey Elliott will come back and score 30 goals. It doesn't work like that. That's not how it works. You take it 1 week at a time. You accept what the reality is. Whether you're happy about it, whether you're annoyed about it, that's fine. You just have an opinion on it. But obviously, a lot of this comes back from the experience that we've had before.
Well, Jurgen Klopp's talked about this before, and just as we wrap up on this point, and by the way, anyone can jump in to answer this section of it. Jurgen Klopp comes back and does say this about the instant reaction to something, and he himself doesn't like the instant reaction. He goes, I don't want you asking me questions right after the game because I've got an instant reaction to the game. It's also this idea of I don't think he came into this club wanting us every single week to kind of like you guys said, you can have a debate about a game and discuss maybe what went wrong. But the idea that there is every time that something doesn't go exactly to plan, that there's a crisis. That's what I was kind of getting at before. Are we in crisis? If the answer is no, then we can kind of debate the game, say these things weren't good enough, and then move on from there and say, actually, in hindsight, the Reds are in good shape. I think Jurgen Klopp is this type of manager that does like to go, well, look, okay, that was a thing, but we need to kind of reset and set up for the next game. And then it's like that thing of, didn't we draw? We drew a game just recently, and then we ended up winning against Manchester United 5-0 and beating Atletico Madrid. And then people ended up going, it may have even been Brentford, where it's like, you know what? On the whole, now that we've looked at 4 games, that was a bit silly back then to kind of go apeshit and crazy at the 2-2 draw, whatever, It's kind of that situation. Should we, highlight the negatives when the slight negative happens, and then in 4 games' time we go, we shouldn't have. Maybe we kind of overreacted back then. But the overreaction creates toxicity, which could influence the team in an energy sense. Nick?
I think for me, it's also the opposition that you're playing against as well. Because when we play against Chelsea, you can be frustrated to say, man, Chelsea held on for a 1-1 draw with 10 men for a whole 45 minutes in that second half. Now, you can be upset that the team didn't create enough chances. But at the end of the day, you say, well, Chelsea, to their credit, they did well. This is how they stopped us from scoring. It is what it is. Yeah, City come along as well. It's Manchester City. Of course, it's not going to be an easy game. But then you have Palace coming to town. You go away to Brentford. You have You go away to United, and then you say, "Oh, Brighton's coming home. Oh, they've had a couple of losses or whatever, so it's all good and well. We'll be sweet here." But you can't have that mentality, especially at Anfield as well, because this is our 20th game now undefeated since March last season, and we know we went through that horrible patch in January, February. We lost 6 home games in a row, and again, George, as you said before, we still made top 4, finishing 3rd somehow, miraculously. Whether that's good coaching, fortune, Allison's golden head, whatever, I don't care. That's in the past. That's happened now, right? So you have to say to yourself, okay, look at the opposition now. We're going away to West Ham this weekend. To be honest with you, out of all the teams we played so far, West Ham actually give me a bit of a worry, because at home, West Ham are pretty good. Again,
the second best structurally team that we're going to play. Yeah, 100%.
Yes. So we're playing Atletico Madrid in a couple of days' time at Anfield. Then we've got to go to London, which is not too bad. We don't have to travel away. It's just, take a bus trip or whatever. But point is, we're playing against a good team at Anfield. They're going to be shithousing till no tomorrow. And then we've got to go away to West Ham. So you can say, okay, we're playing West Ham. Well, you know what? They're coming 5th at the moment. They're a pretty decent squad. Because we still think of Brighton from 2-3 years ago, twatting them 5-0 away, 4-1 at home or whatever. And don't forget as well, they also nearly got one past us. Remember when Allison got sent off for a handball outside the box, and then Adrian come on and they took a quick free kick and we conceded basically straight away. I think that was a Brighton game. We managed to finish that game 2-1 as well. So it's not to say it was an easy game. I think you have to look at the opposition in these instances as well. Palace went away to City, beat them 2-0. Palace turned into prime Barcelona 2008 when they go away to City, you know what I mean? And yet we dispatched them 3-0 at home, and we pumped them 7-0 away last season. Again, different managers, but still, your opposition also is into effect. If this was against a City, like it was the other couple of weeks ago, you say, well, it's City. Yeah, we should have probably won, but hey, it was a good contest. I think we don't expect these things to happen against teams like Brighton. I think that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's also the point that it's you can talk about this whole, but is it a crisis and is it okay? Look, I said this on a show ages ago. It's a problem when the same mistake happens.
Yeah.
And the same mistake has been happening. They've been look, if you look at the games we've struggled in the most this year, right? Go through all the games. What does the opposition do more than the other oppositions that we've had a good time against? And the answer is simple. The teams that we've struggled with have all gone down the guts. And we've been overran and actually run by the midfield. And every time, like if you look at obviously Brentford absolutely ran around midfield on just overloading one side because they knew that they wouldn't be tracked. City, the other one. Then we look at Brighton, they did it. There's 3. Obviously, Atletico Madrid, we got away with that one. Yeah, but there was that one there. Just by the way, and again, being 2-0 up, going 2-2. So, and there was another one it will come to me throughout the season, but it was one of them ones. Like it's those teams that play down the middle, we've struggled with at the moment, and it only becomes a problem when you don't fix your mistakes in anything in life.
Was it AC Milan in the Champions League, Pete?
They're another one who ran past us through the middle. Yeah, they're another team that's done that. And again, we blew a lead on that one. So it's something that it's a problem because we're not fixing it. And it's happening still after 10 games, not after 2 or 3. It's still 10 games in, plus the Champions League, and it's still happening. That's the issue that can continue to more of these kind of debates of games dropped.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up because that's kind of what I wanted to move into because there's something flat going on in there, and we if you guys have just joined us now, we've actually got a lot of people now watching. So thanks for joining. I do want to bring up some comments before we get into this. I wanted to say g'day to Hector because Hector's a big fan of ours, and we're a big fan of Hector. From 2-0 up to almost losing a game at home is unbelievable. That was a poor performance for our midfield and defense in the second half. It's like the defense is asleep.
What a moaner.
Yeah. See, he'll be blasted, but he's spitting facts, as the youngsters like 100%. To say today. Like, you can objectively say that. It is fine. That's not to say, oh, you're a hater. You don't support the team. Fuck out of here with that shit, man. If a team or a player has a shit performance, you call it out. Yeah. That shows that you care. If you just say, yeah, but we'll be right, we'll be right. It's all good to be positive. But if you really care, you got to point out the shit. Like, I'll reference him again. Mark Goldbridge. People might be annoyed at him. People might laugh at him. But fuck me dead. If there's one bloke that cares about a football club, it's him with Manchester United. You know what I mean? That's all you can do. Care about your team.
And Ravi kind of says here as well, we need to stop this issue. I put this up before as you were talking, Pete, but getting 1 or 2 nil up and losing the lead as it happens really often. So it's just this idea of, because now that we go to the goals that we conceded against Brighton, the first one's a bit of a freak. I don't know if you guys, is anyone will put their hand up about what kind of went wrong with that? It just feels like one of those, it just went in under the bar. There's sun in his eyes.
I'll give it to Jimmy.
Yeah.
Jimmy can take it, but George, where does the shot happen from?
It was from wasn't it not the right center?
That beautiful pocket that we've brought up a million times.
The left center mid area. Yeah. So their right,
anyway,
our
Jimmy,
left. Yeah, that little pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. So that one, it is a bit of a free goal, but at the same time, I remember I watched it back a few times, and the thing that stood out to me was the midfield has actually tracked back, but they're just coming back into position. They're not actually coming in to close down the ball, to shut down space where the players are. And the boy's just got the ball on the edge of the box. He's just taken one hit. And it's fortune. It's, Alisson not maybe just reading it right, maybe not expecting it. These things happen. But it's the fact that it's allowed to happen. That's the bit that frustrated me, because that's what it comes down to. The midfield has tracked. I know. I've been a moaner for years. You boys should know this by now. It's the fact that the players have tracked back, all right? And, we've seen it with the Brentford game is always the standout, and the AC Milan game as well, actually. The AC Milan or the Brentford attack are streets ahead, and there's this, 30, 40-yard gap between defence and midfield for Liverpool. This time, there's about 2 yards worth of space between the defence and midfield. But they're just all standing there creating a line. And there's no pressure on the Brighton boy. He's got the opportunity to just take that swing. So it's a bit fortune. It's a bit luck. It's a bit not actually performing the appropriate defensive duties that I would expect, at least, or I think any Liverpool fan should expect.
Yeah, well, the thing that annoys me about it the most is that the game started, and I'm not sure if there's something happens at the start. If there's any was it the poppy? It was a minute's silence or applause, was it not, for poppies and stuff? Because that happened, and I'm like, because I remember thinking, because I had got up too early because I'd actually had a little nap, because I need, even though the game for us was at midnight, I just needed to have a little bit of a shut eye just because I was so tired. But I'd got up 10 minutes before the match, which is unheard of for me, and I'm waiting for it to start, and they're singing "You'll Never Walk Alone," and they're bringing out the poppy, and I was like, there's not enough time for this. I don't know if they're going to have enough time to finish "You'll Never Walk Alone." And as that's happening, obviously, who's the loudest at singing "You Never Walk Alone"? It's going to be the Kop. Then I'm going, are we facing the Kop? Who lost the fucking toss? Why are we running that way? And then I remember thinking to myself, how do we keep losing this fucking toss? And we always get turned around. And when did that even fucking happen? Because, in the middle of the poppies, silence, did they decide that? Because then I'm thinking, Alisson's got the sun in his eyes for the first half, and in the second half, their keeper doesn't have the sun in his eyes. It was like a double whammy. Plus, we don't get the Kop. It was kind of like all of that confounded into the chance that they get, which sun's in Alisson's eyes, and it's just like, we don't have the Kop the second half. It was just, I don't know. It's not, we didn't lose the game because we didn't have the Kop second half, by the way. But I remember at the beginning of there's certain things in the game that I thought to myself, and I did not mention it in the match thread, and I wish I had, because it was a bunch of fortune telling, because I went, we're pressing really high here in 30 minutes. I hope we can keep it up, because we're going to run out of steam pretty soon. Or I said, why are we running into the Kop here with the sun in our eyes? When was the coin fucking flipped? But anyway, that's the first goal. I remember thinking that. Second goal, you can't blame it on the sun, can't blame it on the Kop. Second goal, to me, felt like they just had the ability to pass the ball diagonally through, Pete.
Allow me to share a screen with you, George.
Midfield. Yeah.
Allow me to share a screen with you about the second goal.
Yeah, before you just mentioned that the Brighton midfield was the diamond, which sort of had our three players sort of stretched out a little bit. So you had who goes where, and then you also got to take into account as well Jones, trying to play defensive, which he hasn't really or doesn't do that well. Kate is probably the player for it. Like I said, you're playing with three basically central attacking midfielders, and they're trying to defend as well. How do you expect that to happen?
So he's your second goal.
I'm going to unblock poor Jimmy down there. Here we go.
So Virgil's done everything, by the way. He's offside. Virgil's kept his line. Why is he defending through on his own? I don't know. But he's kept him offside. I want to know what the hell Robbo's doing there.
Mm-hmm.
He's trying to do cover. He's trying to cover. He's trying to cover, and he's trying to cover. Yeah, absolutely, he should be. But he's this is the question. He must be thinking, I'm better off not playing the line because I think something's going to go wrong. I'm better off covering here. And the question is, what? Because these players are drilled, as we keep saying, that this is they get to a point where they're almost like robots. If he's been drilled so much to keep his line, what is happening in this game that is giving him so much worry that he doesn't feel like playing the line is the right option here? Because I tell you what, it looks absolutely stupid when you look at it like this.
His foot is not even contacting. His foot is in motion to pass the ball, so it's not even close to contact. Virgil's got him offside 1,000,000% guaranteed. That is not needed. If anything, he should be worried about 32, not so much about what's happening on the other side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a weird moment, and that's Adam Lallana, by the way. Lallana actually, we said if he plays defensive. We said if he plays defensive midfield, we're going to have a field day. And you know what? He didn't play defensive midfield. And so I think it was him having the field day. He absolutely had that pocket of space where he could be the free man. And I think that's an issue with Liverpool at the moment. When there's freedom, I think we kind of struggle to pick it up. But I want to go back, Pete, to that question of the midfield muddle, as we were talking about. But there you go. I mean, that's Robbo not keeping the guy on side for that second goal, or not keeping him, not making him offside. But what is it that kind of needs to change here? And I want to ask all of you guys, if you've noticed something, maybe one thing in each of the games, but I'll start with you, Pete. Is it staying closer together? Is it not committing as far forward? I mean, also, do we take this if it's going to be a 2-2 every single week and we're going to be scoring loads of goals and conceding loads of goals and getting to a point maybe where we end up with 20 wins and 8 draws, but we might be top of the table? Is that sustainable going forward? Or should we go back to containing? Because last year I felt like we were more contained and then we kind of lost the ability to score goals. I think it's a matter of twisting the dial, but it's clear that our midfield is bombing forward and leaving the defense exposed. I want to ask you, Pete, if we dial that midfield down and they're not bombing as much, are we going to lose that goal threat?
I think you can choose against the opponent what you're going to do. I think you can flip it. So you can do what we used to do with Genie. You can create like a banana-shaped midfield where on ball side, one of the midfielders closest to the ball is the attacker. You have your holder, and then you have the one who's 50-50, which is quite suitable for counter-attacks.
We started the season doing that with Elliott, by the way. We would banana because the two would lock up in midfield and Elliott would do the roaming. Now that there's no one roaming, like you said, Henderson sometimes goes forward and starts roaming.
But something that also has changed, George, and remember at the start, we were freaking out how good it was that in defense, opposite side, the fullbacks were completely rolling. That stopped as well. So
that's compactness. I don't know. We're not compact anymore. Yeah.
So when the ball's with Salah, Robbo isn't tucking in extra 10, 15 meters anymore to be like a second defensive midfielder almost. He's now bombing on, and it's something that clearly hasn't worked because I don't think he's delivered a cross that's fucking found a player since Man City last year, whatever, 2 seasons ago, or a corner. Jimmy. But even Trent does it as well. We used to see him roll in and become like a second holding midfielder, and that has stopped. And I just want to know, so we're committing all midfielders bar one, and now both fullbacks. And do we expect Hendo, for example, or Fabinho to stop 3-4 attackers at once? I'm confused myself.
Mm-hmm. Guys, I mean, I'll throw it to you, Nick, and then to you, Jimmy. I do want to get your guys' opinions on what you think's going wrong with this midfield at the moment.
I don't know, man. For me, it's like the players just seem to run forward. There's no holding back. I mean, at the moment with the players that you've got available, I suppose, I'm not saying that they are in any capacity whatsoever, but I'm just going to use the term out there because anything I can think of. You can't polish a turd. You know what I mean? That doesn't mean that the players are turds, okay? Some may argue, depending on, but I'm just saying when you can't make them what they're not in a way. So you can't expect them to be defensive midfielders.
Maybe we use round pegs in square holes.
Maybe
we use
that. That's better. That's better. Mona. Yes. What a Mona. Yes. I can't wait for that to be clipped. Yes. I'm not saying square pegs in round holes like that. That's you can only do so much. Like you can get it in there, but it's not going to go all the way through. It's going to get stuck. And that's what this midfield seems to be stuck in a way. Jones is running forward, thinking like he's going to press when Firmino's just holding back, Salah's holding back, Mane's holding back. He's running forward. Well, shit, there's a space behind you now. A simple ball past you while you're running forward, and then you're out of position now. So now the defense have something to think about because you're not there to help cover. It's just things like that just seem to be just going wrong. And yes, the personnel is a bit of a concern. That there is definite issue there. It's just, I think it's just them trying to do things that they're not comfortable or not used to doing.
Right. Before I come to you, Jimmy, with regards to the issues with the midfield, actually, I might get you to answer this question. It's a question from Hector wanting to get our opinion.
Jimmy, be careful. Jimmy,
I mean, can we get, maybe we can get a quick yes or no from all of us, but I'll start with you, Jimmy. I'll let you discuss a little bit more, and from the others we can get a yes or no. It's kind of like this guy gets two-footed studs up from Paul Pogba and comes back the next week. And by the way, why is he going off on the stretcher if he's okay? It's kind of confusing. Is that the mentality thing? But at the same, in the next week, he snaps his hamstring apparently, and it's funny because he was pointing at his shin. And everyone thought, because the commentators even went, "Oh, Naby's going down here," and it looks like he's pointing to that shin. That was the impact injury he got. And he comes off with a hamstring injury. So did he go down for his shin and it was his hammy? Or I don't know what's going on. But anyway, the sentiment of Hector's question here is it time to let him go? I mean, is this one injury too far? What would you do with him?
Who's going to buy such an injury-prone player? Like that is my honest... I thought it for a while. I just thought, who's going to want to buy some guy who's going to just be sitting there on the treatment table, just wanting more and more deep heat being applied?
Liverpool FC, that's who.
Yeah, it's look, and we said it for a few weeks now, and look, we've again in a loving arm around kind of way, we've given Naby a bit of flack over the years, purely because when someone, and I've said this before, someone comes with a high price tag, there's an expectation as to what should be coming through, and obviously injuries come up, and that's unfortunate, everything like that. But in all fairness to Naby, when he has played so far this season, he has played well. I don't think he's been the player that we expected, but I still think he's played well. I'm trying to think what I'm going to say here. Christ, I don't think it's time to let Naby go. I don't think it's time to let Naby go.
I love your reasons, by the way.
Yeah,
your reasons being no one will take him.
Yeah.
Can we really afford to get rid of a midfielder when we're short already? Even if he's going to give us one game a month at least.
And that's the other thing. Other teams are just going to be like, oh, they've got rid of Naby Keita, or now they're going to be desperate for a midfielder because they've obviously got rid of Genie last season or whatever. So everyone's now double the price. It doesn't matter who it is or how shit they are. They'll just double the price. That's it. So it's interesting. But going back to the question beforehand,
absolutely,
the midfield model. My thought at the moment is there's just a lack of discipline, and that's something that has I think caused the problems that we're seeing at the moment. There seems to be this newfound freedom that the midfield has, and the midfield is, whilst we've not had a perfect midfield, the midfield has always been very disciplined at being able to work in a certain way, especially with the running fullbacks, everything like that. And it's always worked really well. And there's been times where we've said there's too much of a gap between the midfield and the attack over previous seasons. Now the midfield and the attack just seem to be one thing. And then you've just got the two centre-backs and sometimes a defensive midfielder hanging about, waiting for the press or for the counter-attack from other teams, which then seem to catch us off guard. Is that what it's meant to be? I'm not sure. I have no idea if they've turned around and said, "Oh, let's be a little bit more creative. Let's try and drown the opposition with goals." Because obviously, we've scored tons of goals this season. We have we also went on that run. We were scoring 3 goals at least every single game, which is
most
fantastic
in the Premier
to see.
League.
Yeah, but I don't want to go through that phase where we did with Brendan Rodgers, where we would have to score 5 goals because the other team scored 4 goals. I can't live like that anymore. I aged too much in that season. So I think that we need to find that balance. And Pete said it actually, there we go. Pete said it perfectly. Yeah, my camera's wrong. We need to be able to adapt how we approach games depending on who we're playing. The way we played against Manchester United was perfect. We didn't have to step out of second gear because Manchester United decided to keep trying to press and score. So we just got the opportunity to come in behind, go up, score 5 goals. Absolutely perfect. We try and do that same thing against some of the other teams that we played this season. We try and do something like that against Manchester City a few weeks ago. We get absolutely stung. We get taken to the cleaners and we're absolutely whitewashed. So we have to be able to approach games in a manner that suits the opponent that we're playing.
Yeah, the kind of another thing that I wanted to bring up, one of the last things, by the way, is asking this question, and I'm not sure if Pete, you want a couple of seconds to have a think about this. I might go straight to you. The only reason I'm saying this is the only reason I'm asking this is because on the weekend we saw Konate come in and play with Virgil van Dijk. And you know, I've got a couple of banners here that I can put up. Like that's that little thing down the bottom where it says, "Is it our midfield or defense?" They're called banners. I have another one, and I might actually put it up right now because there was a moment where Klopp is visibly having a loud chat to Virgil van Dijk, and he was asked about it after the game. We've seen this happen before, by the way, and it's never been that big of a deal. The midfield is doing something weird that is impacting the defense. But I'm just wondering if there's anything that could have happened with our defense in the Brighton game that would have made things less catastrophic.
Yes, hold your line.
Look, first I want to answer Stephen's question. Because I know that his little shit has set me up.
So we're going to go back to the question for Stephen. How does Pete feel about? By the way, can I just, before you answer this, we signed Naby Keita after waiting a year and a half or whatever it was and paying £54 million for him. And I said to me and you were on my veranda. Remember, Pete? We actually both said we both said we're not really sure if he's going to be like. I think we said, what if he's not the big player that everyone thinks he's going to be? Yeah. And we kind of we speculated that we're not sure if he's really the right fit, perhaps mentally or physically, for this Liverpool side.
Correct.
But the second thing you said was, I tell you what I don't like, George. You know what I don't like about him? I go, what? And you said he's taken Stevie's number, and I don't like that.
Listen, that number 8 holds so much weight. It holds so much responsibility. It's like wearing a fucking cape that says S on the back of it. That's what it is. You can't have a fucking couple of good YouTube clips and come in and demand number 8 and then be injured half the time every time fucking the wind changes. That's where it all started. That's where.
Oh, man.
And I don't have a real big issue with Naby Keita, I promise. I think he's been really good for us this year. But I do agree with some of the comments made. And I wouldn't sell him unless it's a part of a deal to throw in for Jude Bellingham. Otherwise, we keep him and just bring someone in. But this number 8 thing, fucking hell. It makes me feel sick just saying it, but you've got to earn that. You've got to earn that number. You've got to earn that number. You can't just walk in and say, I'll just
Steven Gerrard changed his number about 40 times before he got number 8, by the way.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, that's the only thing I didn't like about Keita. Yeah, that's something I didn't like about Keita getting that number. I feel like it skipped a conversation at the club. I mean, everyone's had to like build up to that number. Curtis Jones, you can see him building. But has he not had the same 2 numbers as Stevie, or at least 17?
No, so he started off
17.
48.
They then went to 17, which Gerrard went from 28 to 17.
28 to 17, yeah.
Yeah. But it's something that it's like, it really irks me. It really does fucking irk me because that number 8 is the best number in the world. And it's the most important number in Liverpool, or for most of us in our generation. And to put him in that shirt that's failing, I'm not going to say miserably, but nowhere near living to the expectation of putting on that sort of number, it does really fucking piss me off. So thank you, Stephen. Now, your question, is it the defense? Which was basically,
is it the defense or the midfield? And also, like, considering there were questions about who should be starting against Brighton, we ended up going with Konate. Is it purely the midfield being completely weird, or has the defense not been up to scratch? And that is a defense with Virgil van Dijk in it, by the way.
Okay, so Jurgen Klopp the best defenders are the ones at the front to start with. So it starts from the front, always, in terms of defending. Defending our goal always starts from the front with us, always. That's the gegenpress. That's exactly what he does. That's his whole philosophy. It all starts from the front. The issues we're experiencing, I think he has to choose. I think I agree with what Jimmy was saying with the all-out midfield attack, which is fine. If that's what the road you want to take, then you've got to kind of adapt what City do, which makes them so well-balanced. Maybe then Robert and Trent don't have to go every single time. Why don't they just sit off an extra 10, 15 meters? If that's the case, because your midfielders and Mane be the ones out wide. If you put a third one out there, maybe is it too cluttered? If you keep them away a little bit and go back with Robbo, with spaces,
Trent and Robbo win high up. That's the only thing that's why he likes them, because they end up winning high wide.
Well, then you have to choose between the two. You can't do all, because as good as Van Dijk is, unfortunately, two at the back, whether it's Matip, Konate, Gomez, doesn't matter. Two cannot defend against six. Yeah, it's as simple as that. Regardless of if it's Van Dijk, with two Van Dijks, if we cloned him and put them side by side, they will still not stop six, players running at them, with time on the ball, because the others are still chasing back because they're all fucking in edge of that in our box. So I think the answer is not midfield or defense. I think it's a choice of balance. And I think the balance at the moment against certain oppositions who play down the middle is completely wrong.
Have there been, just staying with you, Pete, has there been instances, do you think, given that little pocket between the centre back and the fullback, has there been a little bit of shakiness in our centre backs at all, or is it purely the system?
No, there's been shakiness, because I feel like you saw it against Manchester City and against Atletico Madrid. Matip was drawn out because he felt like he'd go and close the ball down because of no one else there. So it's something that it's yes, they're making mistakes, because I feel like they're confused now, because it's like, shit, there's three of them. Yeah. I'm just going to go to that one. And you saw Matip was coming back from out of position against Manchester City, deflected him, and it goes in, the poor bastard. And you saw it against Atletico Madrid, and when Griezmann found that little pocket before he scored his second goal, I believe, Matip was caught out of shape. And so it's something that, they are making mistakes, but I feel like it's purely because they have to make a decision quite quickly because of the overload that's happening.
The same happened with his Brighton second goal with Konate. Actually, he got dragged out because the left winger actually makes a run from the inside and then runs out. So Konate's tried to stop that, which has then left the gap for Trossard to fill in. The midfield weren't there in time.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I was trying to find a banner. I think I did want to ask questions about Virgil's form. And I mean, I might ask you, Nick, if you think, whether it's Virgil or the other defenders, do you think there is a crisis of confidence there at all? Considering we were all kind of excited about Konate coming right back into this defense and hopefully having a clean sheet with Virgil next to him. But yeah, either they're getting lent down by the system, or there's something that they're doing. Like Jimmy said, we've seen Konate and Matip do it now on that side, diving in. Now, are they diving in because they're making mistakes as centre backs, or are they diving in to fix problems from the midfield, or is it both?
Oh, it's a good point. Like Pete said, if two defenders can't defend against six attackers, and that's what we're finding. That's why I said our midfielders want to go all out attack, and that's all good and well. But what good is going all out attack if you've got three forwards bunched up in or around the box? You've got overlapping fullbacks as well, and then you've got a midfield who's basically waiting outside the D of the penalty box, and then all you need is a quick turnover, and then bang, there's a counter attack, and then where do you go from there? It's like we're committing too many players forward, and therefore our defense has more work to do when they're behind. If we had three, like you have two, like a Konate and a Van Dijk, and then like a Henderson or Fabinho just in front, sort of like screening like a three, and one of the fullbacks, you don't need both of them to go up straight away. One can go forward, one hangs back, so you always got a three, and then someone in the midfield as well. That's what I would say. Van Dijk now, he's come back, started the season. So wasn't rushed in, so to speak, but now has been playing almost every single major game bar the EFL Cup games. Now, one thing that we do say a lot is that you need to have a good partnership with your defense. Like your same starting 11 every week, everyone knows their roles, everyone knows how to do their job and things like that. Same when players come in and out of the squad, everyone knows their role. At the moment, they might know their role, but they can't transpose it to make do on the pitch in a way. Now, Van Dijk, a lot has been said about Van Dijk. I want to say this, actually. Fuck it, I'm going to say it. Steve Nicol might be a Liverpool legend, great, whatever, but he called out Van Dijk's defensive display against Atletico Madrid, one of the worst displays he's seen from Van Dijk. In what fucking planet is conceding goals against Atletico Madrid like some catastrophe? It's Atletico Madrid. They're a good team.
In Spain.
And Van Dijk... Yeah, in Spain as well, at the Wanda Metropolitana with 50, 60 plus thousand Spaniards yelling at you. Like, in what fucking planet do you criticize a player for conceding a couple of goals against our good team? He's Van Dijk, he's good, but he's not invincible. Same with the rest of the squad. So you can't sit there and say, oh, Van Dijk had a bad performance and therefore there goes his form. We say form is temporary, class is permanent. Salah doesn't score 2-3 games and then he'll score 5 in one game after that. You know what I mean? It's shit like that. You can't sit there and say, Van Dijk's had bad games and, that's his best days are over now. You concede some goals. The defense can only do so much. Like Pete said, you got to start from the front. If the front players aren't doing their job, it's going to go through to the midfield. Midfield's going to get bypassed straight to the defense. And then you've got Alisson sitting there, flapping in the sun when he's had a hit and hope gone over him. What do you do?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I completely agree with you. And by the way, on the topic of Steve Nicol, he works for ESPN, if I'm not mistaken. So
yeah, that's a problem.
He'll just write headlines as much as he can. So yeah,
that's the problem.
He's probably just trying to create clickbait articles. Just a bit of housekeeping before we wrap up the show here. Thanks to everybody who has tuned in today. We're on 493 subscribers on the YouTube. So. Wow. For those of you who are watching this delayed, watching this on the YouTube after the fact, or those of you watching live, please help us get to 500. We just need 7 more. So, create those fake accounts and get that done. I don't know. Maybe the captains that be the lads in the UK, maybe they don't like me saying that, Pete. I don't know if we should be advocating for people to create fake accounts, but if it gets us to 500, I mean,
don't make fake accounts, please. Tell your mates to make fake accounts. Pay your friends to make fake accounts. Tell your mum to make a fake account. Your dad, your cousins, sisters, uncles, and aunties. And thank you very much.
It's good for the algorithm. Come on.
It's good for the algorithm. Absolutely.
Algorithm. Yes,
algorithm
indeed.
Pushes it up. We've got Atletico Madrid later on this week. Just a very quick, guys. I just want to hear it. Maybe Jimmy, excited about that. Do you think if we win that game, does that put Brighton to bed? Let me put it this way: we beat Atletico Madrid, we beat West Ham. Are things looking rosy again?
Yeah, we go back to being top Reds again. Everything will be fine. Don't worry about it. My God. Looking forward to the game.
Flip-flop between the two.
Yeah, doesn't matter. We'll be right. It'll be a good game. It'll be a really good game. Obviously, Griezmann is banned for it as well. So likely
plays.
So Suarez plays, which will be interesting. The last time Suarez played at Anfield, he lost 4-0. So it'll be a great game. I just want to walk away with a good performance, to be honest. Obviously, a win as well, but given how things have transpired with our defence and midfield concerns, maybe more midfield, I just want to see a good performance at home, especially in Europe, and just get this group stage tied up.
Pete, do you think Thiago and Fabinho come back in for this big week for us? And do you think if we get 2 victories on that, we can kind of, again, put this little draw behind us?
I think Fabinho starts. I think that's why he didn't play against Brighton. I think it was a calculated risk, which kind of ended up failing. But I think Fabinho plays. But then again, I'm like with Jimmy. I just want to get through this group stage. I think a draw, even at home, I know it's at home, and I think a draw is good enough to make sure we qualify anyway. I just want to get through this group stage. So against Porto and AC Milan, we can kind of rotate the squad a little bit, maybe give Minamino and Tsimikas some quality minutes against some quality opposition. Because Tsimikas, he's been knocking that door with a fucking sledgehammer at the moment, and still nothing's happening. So, But the whole put it to bed stuff, I'll let you know at the end of the season.
Nico, to you.
Yeah, it's gonna be a tough game. We know the shithousery that they can give us. They've given us some grief before in the past, as I mentioned. Well, last time they came to Anfield, they knocked us out of the Champions League with a 3-1 win, and shell shocked. And that was the last time we saw European football for a while when the COVID kicked on. And before that, Diego Forlan in extra time, securing a win for him in that semi-final of the Europa League, and that was a bit of a heartbreak there because I think they won it that season as well. But you know what? the only thing that concerns me is the midfield at the moment. If Fabinho is fit enough, do you want him to start against an Atletico Madrid team who could still hack him and cause some more damage, or do you save him and save him for a West Ham away game, mind you? That would be my question here. Thiago is probably not going to be back here. Who the hell knows what's happening with Thiago at the moment? You probably say it's going to be pretty much the same sort of starting 11 that we saw on the weekend, but I agree. You probably start Tsimikas, as Pete said, and maybe Matip does come back into it, give Kanate a bit of a break because there'd be pressure on him after the last performance just the other day. Yeah, you can win 5-0 against United, and that's United. That's all good and well. But like I said, when it's the opposition that you're playing against, and the fans take issue when you don't get all 3 points like you're quote-unquote supposed to, that's when pressure starts mounting on you. But look, we're 9 points. If we get a win here, that's a nice 12. Pretty much done and dusted, because Atletico are on 4 points. They're coming second, so they've still got a bit of catch up. But if we get a draw, I don't think that's the worst result. I'm more concerned about West Ham away, to be honest.
Well, that's the week as it looks for Liverpool. We're going to see Atletico Madrid at Anfield, most probably see former Liverpool striker Luis Suarez as well, because of the suspension to Antoine Griezmann. And then we obviously do have West Ham after that. It's a great opportunity for Liverpool to, again, when the games are coming thick and fast, try and think of a way, or try and devise a way to put that and yet another draw behind us. It has felt like a defeat, but hopefully there are rosier times ahead. And I say that with a massive pair of rose-tinted sunglasses. So this has been the match debate, the post-Brighton match debate. Please, guys, subscribe, like the video, send us up the algorithm, and we will see you for another match debate, hopefully after Atletico or after West Ham next time. Bye.